Hello, and welcome back to The Honest Left. So, our good friend, Mr. Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, is now apparently Sleezy Joe. Now, I'm really late talking about this story, but I wanted to kind of wait, see what kind of more details we get as this woman, Tara Reid, has been telling her story through various media outlets. Look, it's very important that we take an objective view here. Because as much as I dislike Joe Biden for his politics, I can't really say I know Joe Biden personally. I can't really say that I understand Joe Biden's personal life. And so, again, as much as I dislike him, it's important that we take an objective look and look into the allegations and look into the details and decide for ourselves whether we believe this is true or not. Now, what is making me kind of believe that these allegations are true is mainstream media not paying any attention to them. Because, of course, during 2016 and onward, there was so many allegations going against Donald Trump that liberal media was just eating up and was just pushing them right in your face. I think there was something like 12 different women who had accusations of Trump's inappropriate behavior towards them. And liberal media just ate this up. But when it's Joe Biden and someone comes forward and they have a pretty detailed story, and there is proof that they did work for his staff when he was a senator back in the 90s, and media is just completely ignoring it, that sounds kind of fishy to me, right? So what I want to do is kind of go through what the accusations are, cover the story that way, and then kind of talk about the implications and whether we should believe these accusations or not. So let's get right into it. So, Miss Tara Reid alleges that in 1993, while working for Joe Biden when he was a senator, working in his staff, that Joe Biden had a number of inappropriate behaviors towards her. The main one and the most serious one being that in one instance, he threw up against the wall, ran his hand down her body, and put his fingers somewhere where they should not have been without consent, of course. She says that she pushed him away, and he responded with, "Come on, man, people said you liked me." So, right off the bat, that's just awful if that did happen. And I definitely feel for this woman working in a staff for a senator that she says she believed was a champion of women's rights. For him to do something like this was devastating. And she says that it did affect her career. Not only that, but apparently Joe really liked the way this woman looked. And she heard not directly from Joe, but from one of Joe's staff members that he wanted her to serve drinks during meetings because he liked her legs. And when she refused this, all of a sudden, her direct supervisor, another Joe Biden staff member, of course, was finding lots of faults in her work, and it became a very tense environment for her. She says that before these incidents had happened, she did not have much direct contact with Joe, but that Joe would look her up and down and smile, as men do when they find a woman attractive. And also, after the drink serving incident, her supervisor told her that she needed to dress different and, quote, button up and wear longer skirts, saying that she was too noticeable and that she needed to not be noticeable. And she says that she's bringing this story up now because back then there was no framework to bring up these types of stories. Obviously, there was no Me Too movement going on, and there was no organizations that were willing to provide legal and PR support for these women to bring up their stories, to bring up these allegations and stories of abuse against powerful people. And Joe in the 90s in the Senate was a very key senator. He was a very key part in signing many different bills and many different legislations into law, and he was a very key member of the Senate. So he was a very powerful man. And if there was no framework to bring this up, then how would she bring it up, right? If you have this powerful senator, and you're just a low member of his staff, and you want to bring up allegations against him, you're going to get eaten alive in the 90s. And throughout the 90s and 2000s, is where many of these Me Too stories take place, and they're not brought up because they would get snuffed out. And women would be very afraid to what could happen to their careers, and even, in some cases, probably afraid for their lives. Because, these powerful men, they have power, right? I keep saying the word power, I'm sorry, but they have powers, and they know many people. And so it was very hard for many of these women throughout that time period to deal with their stories. And also, without the Me Too movement, without women's rights and feminist movements going on, a lot of women, and Tara Reid included, state that they felt these things were their fault, and that these men would make them believe that it was their fault what happened because of the way they dress or because of the way they act, whatever it might be, and that is what Tara Reid states as well. She believed that it was her fault for the way that she dressed, that this happened to her. And so then finally, in January of this year, she decided to bring the story out on her own because she went to one of these Me Too organizations, an organization called Time's Up, and they refused to help her. They refused to bring up the story. They refused to provide legal and PR support for her because Joe Biden is a presidential candidate, and not in January, but very soon after would be the the Democratic nomination frontrunner. And they believed that it would hurt their organization, and they were nonprofit. They believed they would lose nonprofit status by bringing up this story against a candidate running for federal office. And so what does that tell you right there? You have this whole Me Too thing. It's such a big deal. Everybody makes such a big deal about it, and it is important, right? It's important that people are able to tell their stories, and they are able to go against these powerful people and expose the truth of what they are. That is very key, and that is very important. Now, in my view, also, this whole Me Too thing has brought up probably many false accusations as well, because, look, people like attention. People believe they would like to be a public figure and would like to be famous. Many people who are a public figure and are famous will tell you you don't want that, but it is a very alluring thing to work toward. Now, do I believe these accusations are false? Well, like I said, I have a very strong disdain for Joe Biden as a politician, and he is a creepy person. This has already been documented. He's got the hair sniffing, he's, he had a rally not too long ago where he kissed his granddaughter on the lips, and he's just a creepy person. Okay, but I don't know anything about Joe's personal life. I know literally nothing about his personal life, besides the fact that it's completely obvious that he has dementia, and that is a personal thing, and that is completely obvious. It doesn't take a doctor to see that. But other than that, I don't know anything about Joe's personal life, and, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. Now, I'm going to say this, and this might sound kind of messed up, but I want to believe that it is true. And this is me just being completely honest with you guys. I am the honest left. And look, I'm just being completely honest. I would want this to be true because I already believe that Joe Biden is a sleazy man and is a creepy man. And I dislike his politics. And this would, I would hope so, be a big hit against Joe. Now, that could not be the case as well, because like I said, during Trump's campaign, when Trump was running for president, there were like 12 different accusations against him, and people just kind of ignored them. But those accusations were also constantly brought up by liberal media. Now, no mainstream media has really covered this story. There's like little inklings, and I believe there was a press release from Biden's campaign stating this was not true. Obviously, he's going to deny. But the fact that I don't even think Fox News has brought this up is very strange to me. Because like I said, liberal media took these accusations against Donald Trump, they posted the hell out of them. And they made such a giant deal out of them. And so the fact that there's no mainstream media doing that for Joe Biden kind of makes me believe that something is going on here. If this did happen to this woman, obviously that's terrible. And she says that it definitely affected her career, that no one wanted to hire her and things like that. And that is often what happens with these women who are abused by powerful men. It kind of ruins their life in a way. You know, obviously PTSD, but also professionally, they could get blacklisted, and they could get blacklisted for trying to bring these things up. And that is exactly what happened to her. She didn't really have a place in Washington after that, and that sucks. And that also kind of makes me believe that this is true. And again, I'm trying to be as objective as I can, but I don't see any reason not to believe her, right? It is kind of, you got to look at it in a way of like, it is kind of strange that it is being brought up right now. You know, that Joe Biden is the president, is the Democratic frontrunner. Now, obviously, she tried to bring this to Times Up before he was the frontrunner, but he was still running. And bringing it up in a time where he is the frontrunner and he has all the momentum is a little bit strange, and it seems kind of opportunistic. And the Me Too movement, it started, a couple years ago? Like, could have brought it then. So the timing is very strange. And that is the only red flag I see in this story, is just the timing. But she has detailed accounts. She has names of people that have been kind of classified, bleeped out in certain interviews and things like that. But she does have the names, and there is evidence she worked for Joe Biden, obviously. And so what does this mean? Well, if mainstream media does start talking about this, I have a hard time believing it'll really make a difference. As much as I want it to make a difference, because the Democratic frontrunner definitely should not be a R word that I can't say on YouTube. Democratic frontrunner should definitely not be that at all. And if he, by some chance, became president and all these accusations were true, that's a bad look. But hey, Donald Trump's president right now, so what are we going to do? And that's my point I want to make, is that as much as these allegations were pushed against Donald Trump in 2016, it didn't hinder his campaign at all. So will it hinder Joe Biden's campaign? Well, here's the thing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a genius talker. As much as he's a terrible politician and the most established president we've had in many, many years, he's a great talker and he's great at spinning things. So what did he do when he was accused of sexually assaulting women? He flipped it and said, "No, I didn't do that." You know who did? Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton's husband that he was running against. And he brought the women who accused Bill Clinton to one of the debates and sat them right on Hillary Clinton's side. Genius. Is Joe Biden that genius? No. No, not at all. He can barely even say a coherent sentence. Do I believe that Joe Biden is going to have the genius to do that? Hell no. No way. But again, mainstream media is trying to cover it up. And as much as we kind of all wanted to believe that mainstream media doesn't hold the power that they think they do, we were proven very wrong. We were proven very wrong by, how Joe Biden has become the front runner and how Bernie has been demonized, and, voters feel disenfranchised from Bernie because of the constant mainstream media attacks on him and the constant praising of Biden being the most electable candidate, which, come on, it's bullshit, but it is what they're saying. And so if they're not going to bring this up, I doubt the reach will be as far as it should be. And that is a problem. It could literally do nothing. It could literally mean nothing. And that is terrible. That is completely terrible. Because if these things happen to this woman and they are being covered up, there is not enough light shined on these issues, then it'll mean nothing for her, and it'll mean nothing for Joe Biden and his campaign. And that's very sad to say, but that's kind of how things work. Because look, again, as much as we want to believe that there's nobody watching mainstream news and media anymore, there is. And who's watching mainstream news and media? The Joe Biden voters. The people voting for Joe Biden. The elderly people. The people over 50. They're the ones who still watch CNN, MSNBC, ABC, all these things. And so if they're not going to bring it up, the Joe Biden voters aren't going to see this story. And they're still going to go vote for Joe Biden. Not knowing that they could be voting for someone who allegedly sexually assaulted one of his staff members. And that's just terrible. But that's the way it is. There's nothing we can do. So look, do I believe this story? I want to believe the story. I'm not 100% convinced. just because of the timing. The timing seems strange to me. And again, as much as I dislike Joe Biden as a politician, I don't know him personally. I can't speak to his personal life. And obviously, this was a work-related event, but it's kind of a personal life kind of thing because it's not part of his public life. And so that's all I got. It's up to it's up to you whether you believe the story or not. It's up to you whether you wanted to push this narrative or not. I'm going to do my part and cover the story, but I can't say for sure whether it's true or not. With that being said, if you like this video, make sure you drop a like on it, subscribe to keep up to date. Leave your thoughts, what you think about this in the comments below. Thank you for watching.